Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Yaman, how you doing?
Doing well. Doing well. Just trying to get my. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and
I
clear.
can hear.
Loud and clear. Wow. Okay, we're on speaker for, so I can't really have that at the coffee shop right now. Hold on one second.
Not sure we're gonna get too many bears in here today. S- Looks like a $6 billion loss for them today.
Yeah, right. Nick, were you in the other macro space?
I was in there for a little bit.
What'd you think?
I think you made great points. And again, I wasn't in there long enough to hear the arguments, but the points that you made, I mean, you've been consistent for the past, 3 years or so.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an interesting discussion. The one downside of these amazing Tesla life spaces and other Tesla spaces as well is that whenever I go to another space, it sucks. I mean, they just consistently horrible compared to this. The amount of misinformation about Tesla and the hate for Elon in those spaces is just insane.
Yeah, did you invite him into Tesla Live?
I did at the end. Yeah, I did. A couple of that followed me, follow my macro analyst account. So maybe if they see it over there, maybe they'll come over anyway. Omar, how are you feeling about the stock price rise?
Hey, you know, pretty disappointing to see. Um, I did want to get more shares, but I, did buy about 500 after the earnings, around 150. So I think I'm up $20,000 on that part of those 500 shares I added alone in six
Great.
days.
Yeah, that's great. Let's give Lord Pretty Flacco some opportunity to get it off his chest and, pump his chest a little bit. Go ahead.
Thanks. There's a lot to pump off my chest. Today, my calls made around 360,000. Not bad for a week. That's aside from my shares. I'm definitely going to run victory laps. I'm going to be very annoying for a very long time.
All right, great. Well, that's the round one. You get 3 rounds to pump chests and anything else you want to pump. Sawyer, how are you?
Doing good. What's up, guys?
How are you feeling about the stock price increase?
So I've been following Tesla a long time. I've never seen sentiment flip this quickly. I mean, what's happened over the last 5 days is pretty wild.
Yeah. Omar?
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the highest performing days, the best performing days, they almost always come right after the worst days because then you have sort of a low base to jump off of. But this is kind of the thing with Tesla. It's prone to explosive one day moves to the upside. So a lot of people will say, okay, yeah, I'm going to sell. I'm going to wait until after earnings. The risk is that you have a situation like this where you're out that one day, right? Just being out that one day where you have this explosive one day move and you lose out on, a majority of your returns. So that's why the strategy of, okay, let me just sell before earnings and then buy back in can be very risky.
I mean, it's not like the fundamentals have changed necessarily. I think it's just more like people are opening up their eyes and are not as scared as they were like a week ago, just because Elon reassured his vision and his plans for the future. And I think there's this feeling that Elon is back at Tesla, even though he was always there. There's just a sense that he's spending more time there, and that with all this string of good news and this deal with China or this approval in China, it's just sort of a perfect storm of positive events.
Omar, can you tell us a little bit more about the approval in China, please?
Well, we have a few different developments. One is that Tesla has expanded their partnership with Baidu. So back in 2020, Tesla moved to Baidu for mapping in the Tesla vehicles. That means you can see the Baidu map when you're in your Tesla in China and you can use that to navigate. much better than the mapping that existed before. But that's kind of just at the UI level. As you know, FSD needs map data, including lane level guidance, to be able to work. Now, this is readily available in the United States and Europe, but in China, there are national security laws that forbid anybody from doing any mapping or surveying of the Chinese mainland without a special authorization from the state council. So only a few companies are able to do this, and they're all Chinese companies. Foreign companies are not allowed to do it. So the partnership with Baidu to supply mapping for the use in FSD is a really critical deal that they needed to make to launch FSD in that country. And from what I understand, Tesla's had conversations with relevant officials in the CCP, and they've sort of given Tesla the nod to launch FSD in China. Another important issue was the data security issue. Are they are they keeping the data in mainland China in the data center? Is it not leaving the US to spy on, to potentially spy on what's going on in China? And several different companies were granted authorization or approval, the sort of stamp of approval on the data security side. And I think it was like BYD, Li Auto, like a few Chinese companies, and then Tesla was the only foreign automaker. So Tesla's the only foreign automaker to have that approval. My understanding from some of the stories that have leaked is that they have the necessary approvals to train FSD using that data and create a version of FSD for China and to launch it in China. They don't have a specific timetable yet on when it may launch in China, but they have the green light now from a regulatory perspective to launch FSD supervised in the country. So we've now seen the first video of FSD running in Germany. We're now seeing steps to launch FSD into China. Now that they have V12 out, they're moving very quickly to scale this across the world. And I mean, I think people are going to be amazed, starting with FSD 12 and experiencing zero intervention drives for the first time coming from basic autopilot. It's going to, instantly basically 2 to 3x the potential of this business. Because right now, it's all the United States buying and subscribing to FSD. You saw Tesla launch enhanced autopilot subscriptions in China, preparing to also launch FSD subscriptions in China. So when they're selling it in Europe, China, and the US, obviously the sales potential is 2 to 3 times greater than if you're just selling in US and Canada.
Okay, great for that summary.
No, I think that was a good summary.
About Tesla, how is the FSD rollout going so far?
Pretty good. There are several developments, recent developments. So version 11, version 12.3.5 first has rolled out to about 5% of the fleet. And it was a very steady but very slow rollout, unusually slow, like 1% a day, but it was continuing. And then it suddenly stopped. They paused the rollout. And then the new version showed up, the 12.3.6. And now, in just 2 waves, it already matched the rollout of the previous version. So we have about 5% of the US and Canada Tesla fleet on this version, or at least getting that version. There are some installations still going on. So that's a big development. Of course, everyone is waiting for the next version, 12.4. That would be a big change, and but we don't know exactly when it's coming. Hopefully soon enough. And then obviously this the big update, not specific to FSD, is that spring release, which is expected to come out any time now. So it can be like, maybe even this week, who knows? So we'll see. It sounds like they're just trying to make it work, and they're not going to release it until it's fully tested and ready. It's being tested for quite some time now by employees, and they're now up to that 3 point update of that version. So it's so it should be coming soon. So hopefully, as soon as they work out all the issues, that will be rolling out. This is the big merge that everyone was waiting for, that will incorporate all the changes that were done on the UI side, all the new features that they're adding, things that have been already available on the 2024.8 branch. So that will be merged. And hopefully it will also have the latest FSD built in. It's still not known whether it will include the 12.4 or they will decide to be more cautious and just put the latest field tested one. So we'll see. I'm really hoping that we will see 12.4, but I'm not 100, I'm not completely optimistic that will happen.
Thank you very much about Tesla for the overview. Always help.
Yeah, one other thing I wanted to mention, there are also pretty big changes coming on the Cybertruck, and I'm sure Omar or someone with Cybertruck can tell us more about this, specifically for the off-roading and stuff. So and that probably will be part of that spring release as well. So I think spring release will go worldwide to all cars, all models, pretty much all versions. Of course, not all features will be available to all cars, but in all regions. But it's supposed to be one all-inclusive version for everyone.
Thank you very much about Tesla. And I encourage, about Tesla is a great account, very detailed, accurate analysis, and he's very generous with his time replying to questions. But the problem is people ask the same questions all the time. So try to spread the facts and the insight that about Tesla and others on this panel provide to others, so that they don't have to ask the same questions a million times a day. So, and also the link to Patreon is at the top of your screens. It is because of my patrons that this space is free and open to everybody. If you can join, you will be supporting Tesla Live. Oh my God.
Yeah, the spring update is in testing around the world, in Europe and China, so it should be rolling out to everybody, hopefully pretty soon. The plan for the US is to put 12.4 in it, and there's a lot of people on 2024.8 who haven't gotten 12 yet. They're still running FSD 11, and they're still running the free trial. So just like we got the free trial last month, expect to see another wave of excitement when this spring update goes out with 12.4. And it should have smart summon and the ability to reverse. Now, if that FSD isn't ready, then they may put in, 12.3.6 or something. I'm not sure. But right now, the plan is to get out 12.4, have the UI updates, and have summon. One more thing I wanted to mention about the China data security approval that was granted. This allows Tesla, you know how you previously heard about no Teslas allowed in certain government facilities or certain high security areas where they didn't want cameras. With this new approval, those restrictions no longer apply to Teslas anymore. So if that was kind of a downside for you, maybe you work near a government facility or a protected area and you couldn't drive a Tesla for that reason, now you can buy a Tesla and you can take it into that location and don't have to deal with any of these restrictions. So that should hopefully provide a small positive bounce to sales.
Lord, are you waiting for me to just say your first?
Yeah, so going back quickly on the previous topic related to release cycles, I did a quick analysis over the weekend. I posted it in the chat. But basically the sub versions, so think like version 12.1 to 12.1.1, the average ship date is around 11 days. And a version going from 12.1 to 12.2, the average is 43 days. And all FSD versions, so meaning version 8 to version 9 to version 10, that's around 260 days. So the projected timeline for some of these new releases related to 12.4, the implied would be May for version 12.4. And the implied for 12.5 would be July. Version 13, coincidentally, comes up exactly at August 8th, based on the average. And then we have version 14, likely after April 2025. Just wanted to share that in case anyone wants to take a look.
Ryan.
Hey guys, first time, long time. Thank you for giving me a second to ask this question. It might have been addressed already, but I'm not sure. So if it was, I apologize. Is there any concern around the China-US trade war and maybe seeing the US government push back on sharing this type of technology with the Chinese, like we saw with NVIDIA and AMD AI chips?
Omar.
Well, there are, for example, export restrictions on GPUs going to China. But generally, I think China is the largest consumer market in the world. It would be good for Americans to be able to sell into this market as much as, Chinese regulations permit them to do so. And I think Tesla has become kind of the shining example for China of an American business that has succeeded in the market. So they let them open a, fully owned factory. It was the first time a foreign company opened a fully owned car factory. And it's their most productive factory. It's their lowest cost factory. It's obviously, really turned the company around. So I think sort of extending that and allowing them to launch the FSD in the country is them just kind of saying, look, the Chinese market is open for business. We have, we want foreign direct investment essentially. I mean, that could be very useful for them right now. And it's completely changed China in terms of its position as an auto exporter. Chinese cars were viewed as low cost, inferior, cheap. Now it's completely changed. Now, in part thanks to Tesla, which exports cars from China around the world, Chinese cars have started to become seen as the most advanced in the world on the EV side. So I think it meets their state objectives. It meets Tesla's objectives too. It's a market that's too large to ignore, the largest auto market, the largest EV market. So I think China's very happy with it. I don't see the US sort of doing anything to stop it. I think it benefits our economy as well to export and sell cars into other countries. So I don't see any immediate risks right now.
Meta.
Hey guys, I don't know if you want to go through some of the details that were required to get the approval or not.
Absolutely. The more detailed, the better. Long form spaces. There's no, short, superficial stuff in here, right?
You don't want me to go too detailed, so I'll keep it detailed, but not too detailed. One of the things they had to do was convince the regulators that they could reliably remove people's faces out for things captured outside the vehicle. Years ago, Google Street View had a similar issue where it was taking pictures of people's faces and catching people doing all sorts of things while driving around. Turns out if you collect enough data, you catch some funny stuff like robbers and various things happening. And detecting faces is pretty straightforward, and then blurring them. But I think the key issue was if you look at the details, it had to do that, I believe, within the vehicle, not in a data center. So this means that it captures all the video on the car, stores what it wants to send up to the server at some point, removes the face stuff, meaning there's maybe offline compute happening when the car's not driving, various other things. And this is all possible because Tesla built capacity in the car. And if you had too little compute there, if you relied too much on the data centers, it wouldn't have been possible. So it's pretty cool when you think about like how it's operating, how safe it makes it, and most likely those changes can make their way out of China. I don't see why they wouldn't. So
Yeah,
that's
it's a
one.
great privacy feature for the US too and around the world. I mean, we don't really need people's faces to know how to drive.
Exactly. You don't need people's faces. You probably don't need license plates. There's various other things, and that might be one of the reasons why they were very concerned about having these cars around government areas because they don't want people's faces in there. And then the other piece is that it it had to keep all the data within the country. They had to meet all the firewall restrictions. Obviously, Tesla needs the ability to train, and we've talked about this in previous spaces about like how do you collect the metadata that comes out of there? How do you keep the metadata in there? That's a really complicated negotiation, right? China's very sensitive to that kind of stuff. So you can imagine.
Do you think will
that was not-
Tesla be able to take out the weights?
Yes. Yes, I would suspect that's the case, right? There's no way the AI teams in China had to rebuild from bottom up, right? And it would be very odd if it was a one-directional negotiation where
Good.
Tesla stuff puts it in but couldn't get it out.
Now we have a very on these big days we get a bigger crowd. I do encourage people to come every day, join the space every day, so that when Meta says weights, he's not referring to the weight of machine moms. So Omar.
Yeah, I think given the restrictions on exporting GPUs into China, it's kind of a difficult situation to do training within China right now. They may change in the future. Maybe eventually there is a dojo or a training cluster in China. But right now, they're going to have to really take the data outside of China and train in the US data centers. So, blurring the face and removing personally identifiable information, I think China understands AI. They understand the importance of being competitive in AI. And I think they kind of gave them the nod to take this data and train on it. It's safe, the faces are removed, we're happy with it, and then they can launch FSD in China as a result of that training. If they weren't able to train outside of the country, then it wouldn't really be possible to launch FSD supervised in China right now.
The other thing to notice is in one of the releases I saw on this, the data center was built in 2021, or not, or they moved to a local data center in 2021. So you kind of have to go back and think about when did Tesla actually enter the Chinese market? When did they start planning for this? How long have they maybe been collecting data on this? You don't just announce you're going to do this and then start doing it, right? You have to negotiate all those things. And yeah, China firewall is, quite a complicated piece of machinery to work around or work with.
So based on this information, when do you expect Tesla to launch FSD in China?
8.8.
Yoda.
Before the end of the year.
Okay. And it's going to be kind of FSD supervised, right, Meta?
Yes, it'll likely start supervised, and you can see Elon's comments on this recently about right-hand drive versus left-hand drive countries. People get confused if you're referring to right hand on the road or in the car. In the U.S., we're all on the right hand of the road, so let's just talk about the right-hand side of the road. Other than Australia and India, I think most other countries, and London, or England, most other countries are relatively small that drive on the left side of the road. So it's likely not going to get prioritized too high. Even if it was simple to do, you have to wonder how much time it takes, and then it also has production complexity. As we know, Tesla stopped making certain vehicles with right hand, or sorry, with left hand. So it's a challenge.
Is Yoda there or having connection issues again?
I'm right here.
Oh, okay. How are you feeling about bets?
Yeah, Robotaxi will not have a driver in it. That sort of defeats the whole purpose. I think on 8.8 in China or in the US, doesn't matter where, when they deploy the first Robotaxi as a service, okay, with the new vehicle, the Robotaxi vehicle, it's going to not have a human inside. Now, it's going to be very restricted, certain parts of what's allowed, just like how Waymo operates in certain geographies, certain streets, certain neighborhoods to start. While all that is happening at a very small scale, the current fleet will have FSD available for owners to purchase. And in those use in that use case, it's used, with the human driver inside supervising. Both can happen at the same time. I don't see how that's difficult to comprehend. And then robotaxi is just going to scale up as the safety meets the requirements as Tesla operates that fleet.
Omar.
I think one thing that's really interesting to point out is this is the first example we have ever of a full self-driving system that's capable of doing drives end to end, that's operating in multiple countries around the world and multiple continents. I mean, we have it running in the US, Canada. We've seen videos of it running in Germany with, almost no interventions, and now in China as well. So for the people who say, oh, Waymo's so far ahead or Cruise is so far ahead, when exactly is Waymo planning on launching in China? They don't even have Google search engine in China. Good luck trying to convince them to let you launch Waymo too. So why does this matter? Well, obviously, if you have a self-driving system that can work around the world, the market opportunity is several times larger than if you're just confined to one continent or one country. Furthermore, from a deep learning perspective, having training data from different countries across the world will actually make it better in the US too. It'll learn the fundamentals of driving and physics better, not just sort of the US specific situations, but it'll learn from European roundabouts and Chinese villages. And all of that will make the system better across the world. So now that FSD 12 is going international, it's a very significant moment in the history of self-driving, I think.
Meta. Meta.
Sorry, I was typing something. Tesla Yoda is giving out free coffee. I'd love to get on the other side of that bet.
I mean, he has already enough bets, I think. But I mean, you're welcome to bet him if you want.
Tesla Yoda, don't you think you need to collect data for a long period of time before you can turn it on? And if you need to collect data in China, why wouldn't you want to also collect intervention data by having a human behind the vehicle with FSD?
There's a pretty large fleet right now in China, and I think it's running shadow mode.
But shadow mode can't give you data about when you thought you were going to do something and the human did something. And as far as you're concerned, or as far I say you, as far as the triggers and the model is concerned, they're both acceptable behaviors. And when a human's in driving mode, they actually go, actually, what the model is doing is not acceptable by taking over. And when you see that happen often, then you go, oh, crap, this is an unknown unknown. And those are really the things you got to find.
Man, you explained that so well, Meta. You explained that so well.
Meta, just get in line. The coffee preference is cappuccino extra hot.
Wait, is that an accepting of the bet? Because I'll totally take that.
Yeah, well, what works? So I already have a bet with Yoda that he believes there will be driverless robotaxis on 8.8.
I'll give Yoda till 2025. The first in every country till 2025, I think, will probably always have a human first.
Okay, that's a material difference. So we can actually do another coffee bet. That's a different strike date. Yoda, what do you think? Do you accept?
Can you change my coffee order to decaf? Because I'm gonna have too many coffees.
Sure. All right, I'll type that up while Omar talks.
Yeah, I think first off, there's not going to be any robotaxi on 8.8. It's just a vehicle unveil. But I think also people probably don't realize how much the existing FSD model can just work anywhere. Okay. So it's not like, okay, we want to launch in Timbuktu. Let's go gather a bunch of data from Timbuktu. The data it has from the US and Europe and Asia already teaches it a lot. It teaches it that these are cars, you don't want to hit them. It teaches them that these are people, you don't want to hit them. I bet if you took the US model and just dropped it into China, it would probably work decently well. Now, of course, there'd be certain China specific situations it didn't handle well that you'd have to train more for. But I think the fundamentals of driving, stay in the lane lines, don't hit the car in front of you, don't hit people, it's all pretty similar.
I don't know how often cows and monkeys run out into the road in the United States, but given the proximity to India, I would be surprised if it was zero in China.
All right.
I mean,
I
China
pinned-
actually has
yeah.
better road infrastructure than we do. Their roads and highways are really nice. I mean, there's definitely rural areas where you might have some crazy stuff, but generally it's a modern, city.
Okay, good. Meta, I pinned at the top. So this, you're saying this is not, you're taking the no side, Yoda is taking the yes side. You guys agree? By means by the end of. By means by the end of.
Oh no, we're doing by the end of this year because Yoda was very confident.
Oh, okay. So you're just giving 4 more months. I got you. I thought you were giving end of 2025. Okay, I'll revise. Yoda?
Omar and Meta, just watch the language before this Tesla Live thing gets canceled on the Chinese villages commentary. Robo taxis will be operational in my bet because it could be restricted to as little as one block or a small neighborhood. So I don't see why that is not possible in a market like China or the US.
Meta.
By the time they start constructing a vehicle, I think they're going to want to be able to ramp it quickly. So that's why I don't think they start that until, like you probably roll out FSD everywhere before you start rolling out the robotaxi everywhere. It's very bullish that they've started designing it, but we've seen 18-month lead time till cars are produced. So maybe they're projecting out that by 18 months from now, there'll be some regions where they could deploy it without a steering wheel.
Yoda, the other reason is, Waymo and Cruise did that with HD maps, which obviously Tesla wants to do. So I don't think Tesla will start a driverless robotaxi service until the software is really, really good.
Have you
Ready
guys seen
nationwide.
Have you guys seen Baidu's 3D maps? You may want to take a look.
Meta, have you?
It's not pertinent because the 3D maps would then need to be trained into the model for the model to understand that and make use of it. And that'd be quite the divergence from the way that Tesla has been going about this. So I'm not saying that's not a viable strategy. I just think that the way that Tesla has been approaching this diverges and the way that Waymo was approaching it is different. So other than the geopolitical issues, that'd be more the way that I think Waymo would go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just want to make it clear one thing, by the way. Dylan asked if he can take the first sip out of Meta's and Yoda's coffee bet. I am the broker, so I take the first sip. That's how it works. Omar?
Baidu's 3D maps are not HD maps. It's essentially just, 2D street map data with a 3D visualization. So, when people talk about HD maps, it's really a euphemism because it's not a map at all. They're talking about a LiDAR scan of the area that maps in detail every corner, everything that's sticking out, to a centimeter level. This is just, basic street map data, the same kind of thing they use in the US.
About Tesla.
Does anyone know what exactly Tesla was allowed to collect in China as far as the data until now? I'm sure they were able to collect telemetry from the field, but were they able to get any videos or any other information that would be helpful for the FSD in the future?
By virtue of the fact that they disabled the use of FSD in certain areas, you can assume, and there was EAP in the country, I think it's safe to assume that in the areas where it was not restricted, they were allowed to collect data.
Well, they were allowed to collect data, but it wasn't allowed to leave the country. So they could collect data and they could store it in the local data center, but they couldn't send it abroad and train on it that much. So they may have some, sort of backlog of data to sort of go off of, but going forward, they have less restrictions on that.
Thank you. Okay, good. So I see a few requests to speak from accounts I haven't seen before. One way to get accepted to the board is to reply to the space with your question or comment. I'm constantly monitoring the replies. And if it gets enough traction, enough people engaging with your question, comments, I'll invite you up to the speaker board. Okay. All right. So, any other news today?
Nope. Pretty slow news day.
Slow
SpaceX
news
is
day.
selling seats to space. How about that? Anyone want to go to space?
Yeah, they've
How much
actually
are
been
they?
doing that for a few months. I'm not allowed to tweet out the price, but it's a lot. It's pretty good compared to
Are you allowed to say it
alternatives.
in a space?
No,
Are you allowed to play over under?
no.
Binary search would have got us there pretty quick. So good answer.
Yeah, but you can literally like purchase a flight to not only Earth orbit and to the International Space Station, but to the moon and to Mars. Those will be much later, of course, but you can go to literally to space later this year if you want.
How do you do that? Do you have to like know Elon? Because if the prices aren't listed, is it kind of like a?
So no, you reach out to SpaceX through the link in my post, but they'll let you know the price and you sort of go from there.
I bet
All
they
right,
look at
I'm
you
gonna
and they
email them.
say, I bet you they look at you and they go, "You're not even the realm of us telling you what the price is."
So, they're selling seats, but we don't know the price. What do you mean? Like, do I just write a blank check or something? How does it work? Do
No,
they invite you?
it's a fixed price. I don't know exactly the process of like once you click like connect the connect button, you email them. I don't know how that, but there's a fixed price, and if you pay it, then you get to go to space later
Oh,
this
okay,
year.
I got you. I thought that they like shoot you, and then in midway they tell you the price,
Oh
and
no,
they just take it out of your account.
no.
No, and you're saying it's pretty affordable. I mean,
For
like
the
it's
average
affordable.
person, no.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
you have to be rich. But there are no alternatives. Basically, this is the only way to do this, and it's extremely cheap when you compare it to going up to space on other rockets for other countries.
It's
Okay.
definitely cheaper than building your own rocket, Yaman.
Well, that's great. Maybe I'll get one if the space takes off, and then I can do the space from the space. How
But
about
but
that?
if you're a brand or something, you can purchase a seat, and they're gonna do some Starlink stuff up there. Well, you'll be able to like live stream and have your brand in space. And if you're just a rich guy that wants to go up in space, you can do that too. They'll essentially take you through all the training for a couple months, handful of
Oh,
weeks.
that's great. And you have your custom suit and everything.
Yep, get a custom suit. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So if you bought
Well,
Tesla calls before earnings, now you know what to do.
yeah. And if you want me to post this space from space, go to the Patreon link and sign up. And if enough people do, I'll be in orbit, circling. How fast do I go on orbit? Sawyer?
About 17,000 miles an hour.
Wonderful.
You think
Yoda?
the connection will be better or worse than when we're on Earth?
Well, I'll be closer to Starlink satellites, I guess. I can do that. Yoda?
Yeah, just bring the conversation back down to Tesla. Uh, for for this Baidu deal, everything looks great right now, but one concern I have and wondering what the panel thinks is what about the AI infrastructure requirements? So, for example, is there a slippery slope whereby China gives the green light on Baidu 3D maps for Tesla, but restricts Tesla from building its AI training infrastructure in China, and let's say have to use Baidu's infrastructure? And then what that might have implications in terms of the China the model, the AI model that can drive in China. Would there be stipulations where the Chinese government would want Tesla to make that model available to other Chinese automakers indirectly or directly through Baidu?
There seems to be a lot of confusion about what Baidu's doing. I heard people say they're using Baidu's technology. They're, giving up and going to Baidu. Baidu's just giving them the map. This is Jingling Street. That's Qingfing Street. That's what they have. Okay. You need to know that information. So they're just using the maps. They're not saying you can't have your own AI infrastructure in China. China would love for them to build a data center for AI in China, but it's difficult because of export restrictions. They're not telling them they have to use Baidu's infrastructure to train. They're not doing any of that. They're just expanding their map partnership with Baidu to cover FSD instead of just the map in the vehicle. So it's a very simple mapping partnership. There's no concern about training infrastructure or anything like that.
We have a coffee bet offer in live chats from Real Zertech. Meta, maybe you'll take this one. Actually, no. Meta is stringy. Pocket aces. I'm gonna call it pocket aces from now on. Who wants to take this bet? Real Zertech says, coffee bet, Mr. Beast will go to space in 2024. Who wants to take the other side of that? No, see, Meta doesn't take it. I guess no one took it. Wow, you guys all agree.
Well,
Meta?
it sounds like the trips start next year, so that'd be a terrible bet to make.
There you go. That's funny. Meta?
We moved from the conversation I had manned before. I've forgotten.
That's okay. You can switch back and forth. That's all right. We can't
the
have
problem
two
is I
conversations
forgot.
going. Oh, okay. Joseph.
Omar touched on this a little bit, but I didn't hear an answer, and we may not have one yet. So I know we've got the nod, right, for FSD, but do we know anything concrete or even whisper-wise in terms of the training? Like, I know they don't have the training capability in China right now, so we have to take it to the US. Have we heard anything concrete on Tesla being allowed to do this?
Yes. They're allowed to use images from China in their training set. So, we're talking about really like a few more images being added to the training set. The FSD model is still produced in the same way, using the same training infrastructure. The data set's mostly the same. There's just some more China-specific examples. That's it.
Thank you, Abib, for your tip for me to go to space and host this space from the space. Meta. Oh, actually, nobody says maybe Jeff Bezos can buy a seat into orbit. There you go. Meta.
Yeah, that might be the fastest way for him to get to orbit. The thing that I remembered was a lot of people are bringing up the fact that, they're just buying the maps from Baidu. They've been buying the maps from Baidu since, I think, 2020, according to the internet. So that's not the thing that was approved. That's kind of some fuddy spin that, like, oh, all they got was access. The thing that they got access to, if I understand correctly, was now they're also buying the lane-specific stuff, probably for cities. Remember, they've been operating EAP. EAP is not software 1.0. It uses neural nets. Like, before FSD, EAP was mind-blowing, right? Like, just put yourself back to when Navigate on Autopilot came out on the road, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, this is amazing." That's a neural net. They continue to improve that neural net. If they weren't allowed to collect any data from China on the highways, how would they have made that?
Good. Meta, we have a question for you in the replies. Billy Bob Joe says, how long until Chinese companies have enough H100 equivalent compute available for them to train?
I've been trying to do the back of the envelope math on how many H100s exist, how many ARMs exist, and then roughly how many cars have to exist and how much compute will be in the cars. And it's really hard data to come by. If somebody finds a good source, comment on my pinned tweet. I'm trying to figure it out.
Well, there's more to the answer, right? So even if you gave a ton of H100s to BYD, would they have FSD tomorrow?
No. There's a bunch of techniques, but there are a lot of papers published on that. So I don't think Huawei wrote a really good paper recently in the AI space. So I wouldn't underestimate the software chops at this point.
Don't they also need millions of cars on the roads to train?
Not particularly. We've seen Waymo as a proof example that you can do it without that.
Okay. Yoda.
Hey Omar, I would love for Tesla to be able to do the training in the US with the Chinese video data feed, but I'm not sure if the Chinese government would want all that video feed getting back into the US, and that they would maybe prefer a parallel system set up in China. Yeah, just wanted to get your thoughts on that requirement.
No, they're not requiring that. They understand that it's not feasible. First of all, the exports of GPUs into China are restricted. So you can't buy an H100 in China. They have a chip that they call the H800. It's a slightly restricted version. I think they snuck a lot of H100s in there. They're trying to make their own chips, but it's kind of a difficult situation. I think China doesn't want to fall behind on AI, and they understand, look, the data's anonymized, the faces are blurred. If there's sort of this abstract representation in the training set, it doesn't really matter that much. It's not, a security concern. So they've given them the thumbs up to do this so that they can produce a version of FSD supervised in China. And they're not requiring them to train within China. If they required them to train within China and train a completely separate model instead of using the existing model they have, then it would just delay FSD coming to China for many years. And I think their objective here is really to make sure that China stays competitive and at the forefront of AI, despite some of these export restrictions.
For any of the experts that we have on the board, if you have a question, request to speak. If you have a question, request to speak. If I don't get to you, leave a reply in the comments. I'm always reading the replies. And Meta, we have another reply for you. Question for you. Is FSD something that China can even reverse engineer and steal?
No, it's not easy. I'm not going to say definitively no. There's always new techniques people come up with, but it's the equivalent of buying a car and then trying to figure out how the factory was made, right? That's not how it works. Just because you have the final product doesn't mean you know what the process is. The process is the key part. It's the machine that builds the machine. That's the key part. And the other thing I just want to say on this, a lot of people, I think, have started to have a healthy skepticism for the news and the media and a lot of things that come in the press. Yet those same people believe like China's a boogeyman or they're out to get us and that they're not like prioritizing these things because they actually care about saving the world and not dying to climate change. They may have slightly different opinions about different beliefs, but I would encourage people to have a little bit of skepticism about all the negative stuff you hear about countries, especially when you look at how some countries that you might know a lot about are represented in the media here and how America is often represented in other countries. So don't default to pessimism or pessimism bias.
Stephen.
I was just wondering if anyone cared to comment where the FSD need originated from or where the demand is coming from for FSD, because it kind of feels like it came out of nowhere one day and now everyone wants to push for it, but that was my question. Thank you.
I guess I don't know what you mean by demand for. You mean like why it's impacting the stock price today, or?
Yeah, because typically a product is filling a void of, some demand that society needs, but it doesn't seem like before FSD was started, no one was like, hey, we need some solution for a self-driving car. It seems like it came out of somewhere in
No,
2019?
no. Waymo has been working on this for a long time. Meta, you want to talk to
Yeah,
that? And then
I
Joseph.
mean the modern self-driving car Google project started in 2009. Tesla first offered autopilot for highways in 2014. So this is a product that people have been using for 10 years. It's just that now it's gotten advanced enough to complete an entire drive for you.
And
Yeah.
in fact, DARPA has been funding a project on autonomous driving for decades before Google even started on that. They bought a DARPA team that performed well. And DARPA, you may know, famously kind of like funded the internet. And so their whole point is to say, let's take these crazy hard projects that will move the world forward, like GPS came from them. And again, like don't read everything you see in the media. Sure, countries may be doing that for other reasons, but there's also a lot of like, let's move humanity forward. Some things can't be commercially viable unless you pool a lot of money together, and then you either need a billionaire like Elon to come along, or you need a government to come along. But some things you just can't do. There's a high, I forget what the activation energy cost, right? So you got to get over a hump before it becomes viable.
Yeah, thank the US military for this.
Yeah.
Question for the board. In terms of the Chinese BEV makers, what fleets currently in production have a suite similar to what Tesla's offering with inference chip and cameras that might be able to take advantage of this? Or is this going to be a new production car only type of licensing when it comes about?
Omar.
The best solution in China right now that's similar is the Zeekr 001 from Geely, and that's using Mobileye supervision hardware. But that obviously is not quite close to FSD, and they haven't released their city streets driving functionality yet, from what I understand, only highway.
So no one currently has hardware in their cars other than Tesla that could run a Tesla FSD if they got the license.
You'd need to put an FSD computer and cameras in the car. So it would be something that would probably take at least 3 years to get into a new vehicle.
Even
Meta.
after you put this stuff in the car, I think people forget, if you just had eyes, you couldn't go like do a bunch of things. You need to know how the body works, the driving mechanics, the weight. So the car has to be designed. You have to train it. You have to like figure that out. It's not just one direction.
Great. Wes, welcome.
Hey, thanks. Anything happened today? Just kidding.
Good to have you on the board. Let's go to Mario.
Question for Meta and maybe for Omar. How much do we know about the code that Waymo and Geely are using? Specifically, Tesla reportedly had 360 lines of code they eliminated with V12 going end to end. How close are the other guys to end to end?
Well, Mobileye has actually come out strong against end to end. They say end to end is not the way forward, it's never going to work, and we're staying with planning and control written in C. So Mobileye is very much headed in the wrong direction, and they're the ones who provide the technology that Zeekr uses.
Meta, then Yoda.
I might be controversial on this one because everybody's gonna be like, I'm so pro where Tesla's going. It's very possible, don't be surprised, if a few years from now, Tesla moves away from end to end and goes to like a more blended approach, like mixture of experts or something along those lines. Jan LeCun's talked about this. There's a lot of people in the industry that are showing it, and Llama 3 has kind of proof positive that at least for the things that it was tackling, it's way, way cheaper from an energy and speed perspective. It's way faster. So techniques will continue to evolve. End to end is one approach. I wouldn't assume it's the be all end all, but I think it's good enough to get there.
Yoda.
Hey guys, there is a few key CEOs in China in tech, and luckily Baidu's CEO is a sort of a tamed character. The CEO that we should be all watching and be quite afraid of. This is the CEO that keeps me up at night. is Lei Jin from Xiaomi, and his name literally means Thunder Army. So if you want to talk about a wartime CEO, uh, look up this guy. Xiaomi, took market share year over year from Apple with the Xiaomi phones. He's now penetrated smart appliances and technology into every home in China. He's getting into getting into EVs right now, and the plant looks like Tesla's plant. So this is probably the company that keeps me up at night.
Sawyer, any thoughts on that?
What was the last point he made?
He is afraid. Yoda is afraid.
I
Afraid Yoda is
Who keeps him up at night?
Xiaomi.
Xiaomi?
Xiaomi. Wartime CEO.
I will say that Xiaomi has the advantage of being able to integrate a lot of their current existing software and tablets and stuff right into their vehicles. And because they're a big, large tech company with a lot of smartphone profits, they do have deeper pockets than maybe a traditional EV startup would have. And this is maybe partly why they've been so successful at building already 10,000 of their SU7s or whatever they're called. I know they partnered with someone to do that, of course, but it sort of remains to be seen long term how their brand does, how their products hold up. There has been some initial quality issues. I imagine they'll sort those out. And we also don't know what their long term vision is for self driving. So it's still early stages to be worried, in my opinion, but we'll see.
I mean, there's like a million cars in the Chinese market. They're one of them, and they're losing money on every car they sell right now. So the first thing for them to do is get profitable. If they can actually achieve profitability and people are still buying it, then okay, maybe you can start losing some sleep. But before then, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
On paper, their new sedan is, and price wise, it's a Model 3 competitor, but in feature wise, it's almost a Model S competitor. But Xiaomi said they're willing to lose money on every single vehicle right now to gain market share. Obviously, that's not a good long term strategy. So, as they try to achieve profitability, what kind of compromises are they going to have to make on their vehicles to do that?
They don't have that much in smartphone profits to be able to ramp production and lose money on every vehicle. They have $2 to $3 billion in profits. If they're losing money on every vehicle and they ramp to a high enough level, it's going to wipe out the profits on their business. So that's sort of the upper limit.
Do we know their cash pile?
I'm not sure. I'm sure someone can look it up.
Yoda.
Yeah, everything you said is true, about kind of their existing business, using that as leverage. I guess the point I was trying to make is just the character of the CEO. Just like in, with the Tesla community, we talk about you don't want to bet against Elon. Uh, Lei Jin's character is the same. He never gives up, and he's done this with the iPhone market. He's done this with the home smart appliances market, and this is where he's going next. That's all I'm saying.
Did he give a timeline?
Well, they've produced, I think, 10,000 SU7s now. That's the Porsche Taycan looking EV that they launched with. And that's on, I think, hundreds of thousands of reservations, over 100,000. But he is the character that will be sleeping on the factory floors.
Meta.
This has been true for power electronics and a lot of other things for a long time. It's very easy to catch up through imitation. And when I say easy, like many will fail even in imitation. But the problem is when you build your company around a culture of imitation, as soon as you catch up or you start getting close to catching up, it's very difficult to now switch your company over to a culture of innovation. You don't have the right people. Sorry, give me one second.
Steven.
If hardware 4 is entirely vision based, I don't understand how they're also going to be using the maps. Does that mean that the hardware 4 cameras are not going to be ingesting any images and they're just going to be using strictly map data? But I think a lot of people don't understand how the maps are going to be interfacing with the actual hardware and stuff and how that's going to work.
You know, when you drive and you look at your screen, your GPS directions, and it says you got to make a left up ahead, and there's 2 lanes on the left side. That's the map data they're referring to. This is not super crazy.
So are the cameras even going to be used in order for the cars to navigate, or are they going to rely strictly on the map data?
They're going to rely strictly on the cameras. The only thing they're really using from the map data here is like staging hints, kind of like you do as a driver, right? You look at GPS, it tells you where to go. If you're driving in an area you're unfamiliar with, it'll say you make a left and then a quick right after, that kind of stuff.
So the map
Yeah,
that they're
I mean,
being
you need a
enforced to use-
map to drive a car, right? Imagine someone drops you in the middle of nowhere and they say, "Hey, get to Bush Street from here." And you go, "Well, where's Bush Street? I don't have a map." Okay? So you need a map. Once you get the map will tell you, make a right turn in a quarter of a mile. And then you go, "Okay, so now I need to change lanes over here. I need to get into the right turn lane and I need to turn." But that doesn't mean you're driving with the map instead of the camera. Imagine you're in your car and you're looking at your navigation system instead of the windshield. And it goes, "Oh, okay, make a right turn." You would hit a bunch of cars because you're not looking at the road. So you're still looking at the road, but you need a map to tell you where to go. In the US and Europe, we have maps. They're plentiful, they're publicly available. In China, mapping is very restricted. Only a few companies are allowed to do mapping. So that's why it was so, important to do this partnership, expand this partnership for mapping into FSD. They did, the maps in the UI before, but they need it in a format FSD can use. And that's what this partnership's about. So without a map, we're talking about a basic street map, not an HD map or a LiDAR scan like some other companies do. Without a basic street map, you just don't know where to go.
Thank you.
All right. So we have over 1,100 people in here right now. One of the bigger days of the space usually happens when the stock is up big or when there's some good news. Welcome, everybody. I urge you to come in every day so that you have a deeper understanding of these topics. And I was earlier in a different space, macro-related space, and the amount of misinformation about Tesla and Elon is absurd. I mean, they're trailing by like 5-10 years the information that's in this space and other Tesla-related spaces. So I encourage people to, when you leave this space, try to answer questions, try to, fight FUD in replies in other spaces, speak up, be doing a respectful manner. But I hope that the things that I'm learning in here and others are learning in listener mode extend beyond this space and doesn't just stay here. So you can do this in the replies to the space and other platforms in your daily lives, etc. And just, you request to speak. If you have a question, if you get a question that you can't answer, request to speak and ask, say, how would you have answered this? Meta?
Yeah, I was in one of those spaces earlier, and they thought Elon was from Venus when he's clearly from Mars. So don't believe everything you hear.
Yeah, Maria.
This is a question for Machine, who's not here yet. Is he long yet?
He said he bought some put leaps, I think, a few hours before the stock went up. So I'm sure he will have sold it.
Did you change your profile picture, Mario?
I have 2 accounts, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, that sounds familiar.
Good call. Good call.
What prompted you to use this one today?
I've used it a couple of times in here before. Asked a quick question or 2. I use both. Yeah.
All right, cool. Maybe I'm just more alert today. I did get a good sleep last night. So, Kai Liang. Kai, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Hello. Yes. So hi everyone. So I'm actually on full self driving. it just happened, and the GPS just showed me like poor GPS location. So the car just suddenly like stop at the stop sign and not nowhere to follow. Poor GPS recommendation. So a map is like really important for the FSD. That's what I want to say. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Later, there's another space. So today's space is limited to 2 hours at 4 o'clock my time, Central Time. So in about 55 minutes, Adrian is going to hold a space with Dan O'Dodd. And Adrian just messaged on Omar, are you going to be there?
Yeah, I feel like I probably have like I probably wouldn't have had a space with him in the first place because he's just going to say a bunch of bullshit. But if it is happening, I feel like I probably need to be there.
Okay, good. And I think I'll be on the speaker board too. So it should be an exciting one. And then after that space ends, we're going to come back here, do a debrief. It's going to be a war zone. Get ready. Just put
We
on
could
your.
have you moderate the debate.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. So it's going to be a war zone. Get ready. Get some rest. Do your stretches. Speak fast. Practice speaking fast in across from a mirror, but clearly. Get your answers ready. And arm yourselves with whatever is necessary, all the facts, graphs. It's going to be vicious.
I think you missed the part where everybody needs to just do whatever they need to relax, because otherwise we're all
No,
gonna
there's no relaxing. This is war zone. War zone. What are you talking about?
we're
What
gonna lose our
relaxing? We're
mind
in
while
war.
he's talking. So you gotta,
Wartime conversation.
There's no yoga on the battlefield. Okay.
What do people need to do to relax? Like, what were you thinking? Like drinking, drugs, masturbation. Like, what were you trying to imply there?
get out on the road and let the car drive for you. It relaxes me.
All right.
What you do with your spare time, Omar, is your choice.
Weaponized pixels. Weaponized pixels. Go ahead.
Hey guys, first of all, I want to thank everybody who I've reached out to with random questions, sometimes like minuscule questions, but everybody in this community has been so great. This is my first time in here. I just want to throw this topic out there, and maybe somebody's already been about this, but with the current tension with the Biden administration in the TikTok ban bill, I've read deep in that bill that CEOs / owners of social media companies that have foreign interests are susceptible to being impeded upon because of having those foreign interests. Do you think this current nod from China being a positive note in that relationship will hurt Tesla or hurt Elon, or Biden will weaponize that? Sorry for the pun there. But just general thoughts on that, because it's almost obvious that the FUD is out there, and it's not just the media. The feeling and the sentiment is the administration never includes Tesla in anything and sometimes slights them. So I'm wondering what your guys' thoughts are. And I can take this offline too. So
Meta.
I think if you're worried about the Chinese government slighting Elon and Tesla as a whole, SpaceX has already been one of those like frenemy spaces. I think it's pretty common in tech for people to have frenemies and work together and compete together in a friendly way. If you're referring to the United States government, I think they've already been very hostile. So how much worse is it going to get?
I agree.
You have to stay on mute when you're not talking. Omar.
China is not involved in X in any way. X is banned within China, so people aren't allowed to use it, although some do unofficially. Yeah, there's no relationship between China and X at all. Tesla obviously is an EV business. They have a factory there. But that hasn't affected SpaceX, which has, national security information or anything else. So, I wouldn't be concerned about China. I think I would probably be more concerned about, for example, Saudi Arabia. Some people from there having a 5% stake, but I don't foresee that being a major issue too. Some people have speculated that, they could use this bill to take action against Elon, but I'm skeptical of the bill, and whether it'll work. I expect TikTok to put up a legal fight, and frankly, I don't see TikTok really getting shut down in the United States personally. I think it's unclear whether Congress has the authority to ban TikTok. I think what they're saying is they need to force a sale or something. So we'll see what happens, but I definitely don't foresee China being an issue for X in that regard.
Lumi.
On a different point, if that's okay.
It is.
Yes. Yes. So, my thinking with the whole opening up China with the news today is going to mean that's a very Machiavellian approach, but it means American government will have to now understand that they will be second step for various non like military technology. So I don't think that's even palatable for the administration. So it's going to be very interesting to see if everyone starts scrambling for the tech. Anyway, that's my thinking.
Omar.
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculation, especially with the 8/8 date of the robotaxi unveil, given that 8 is a lucky number in China, that there could be something China related to it. It's possible that if the US doesn't get its act together from a regulatory perspective, you could actually see Tesla robotaxis launch in China first before the US. So, I think there's sort of these competitive dynamics to it. A lot of people say, oh, the regulators, they'll never allow it, they'll never allow it. But when other countries are moving ahead of you, people start to sort of look at you and point the finger and ask what's going on. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a competition between China and the United States to massively deploy self-driving first. And then I think there will be a lot of pressure on European countries to adapt as well, as they see that China and the US are pulling ahead of them. So this is a strategic dynamic for ensuring that regulatory approval is completed quickly in these jurisdictions across the world that I think a lot of people haven't really appreciated.
The link to the space with Dan O'Dowd is at the top of your screens. So you can set your reminders for it. We're going to head over there in about half hour or so.
Will he be turning up?
Yeah, he'll be there. Yeah, I think he paid to promote the space. So it's going to be entertaining nonetheless.
Maybe we should just filibuster and have an advertisement about all the different cars and the pricing of the cars, since he's paid for the ad space.
That's not a bad idea. That'd be amazing.
Every time he refuses to answer a question, we just respond with, yeah, that's an interesting point. And the Tesla Model Y is only this price in this region. Just go from there.
Now I have to be balanced. I got to be balanced as a moderator today. So I'm not going to be doing much of the talking. I'm just going to moderate, I think.
Well, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the other people who are going to be there too.
Yeah, but I get to mute. Right? How are you going to filibuster if I mute you? Good idea, though. Yoda?
Thanks for pinning up the Dan O'Dowd post. Speaking of garbage, this morning I was using FSD and the car just was following this garbage truck and it was able to kind of play cat and mouse with the oncoming traffic perfectly. Just wanted to share that.
Reggie.
Hey everyone. So I've received an extra day on my free subscription or free trial version of FSD. Super excited. So today is my last day of FSD subscription. I was wondering what happens. Does the car have to re-download something, or is it just when it goes, I put it in park, when I put it back in drive tomorrow, it's gonna not have FSD? I was just curious to see how the subscription actually cancel, or can I just take out the antenna where it won't communicate anymore, and I can have FSD. I'm just curious to see how the FSD subscription works. Thanks.
Omar?
It's based on the computer's internal clock that you can't change, so there's no way to get around it. If you removed the antenna, it still wouldn't keep the FSD on there. As a matter of fact, the FSD might stop working. So I'm sure there's going to be people who try and hack it and figure out how to get FSD without paying for it, but their systems are pretty advanced. Their code has a hardware security module that only runs signed code. So they've got as many security protections as anybody. And I think people still have figured out how to do it at times, but it's very, very difficult to do.
Yoda?
Yeah, there's a renew button that you're gonna have to swipe if you wanna keep it on. Just curious if what would be your decision? Are you gonna continue after the trial?
You know, and this is not. I want to make a disclaimer. This is not a marketing tool for FSD or Tesla. I was against it, but man, after spending these last 30 days, I honestly cannot. I can still live without it, but it's difficult for me to go back to driving. I even practice in my Escalade how to just do the one click toggle down and see if my Escalade can actually do some FSD work. It's amazing what they've done. I was super impressed. Well, I have advanced autopilot, so uh, so it's only $2,000 for full. So I am contemplating on that, but it's not my car, it's my wife's car. So um, I'm still contemplating if it is it worth uh, paying for on her car when I'm getting a car soon. So
Are you going to keep the car for 20 months?
I am
Okay, no brainer then, buy it.
sold.
Was your Escalade able to do any FSD drives, Reggie?
A couple of curb rashes. That's about it. Um, it's a hybrid too, so the battery's dying in a hybrid. So, in any case.
All right. Any other questions, comments? Please request to speak. What should I ask today? What should we cover with Daniel W, you guys think?
Ask him about his coin collection. Ask him why he bought 5 Roadsters. And ask him if it's true he's still a virgin.
Meta, you're coming, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna send you a message if you want to review it. Feel free.
Okay.
It's a little outline of what I plan to ask.
I think it's important for people to know Dan's company that he started, that he's still the president of, called Green Hills Software. And Green Hills Software directly competes with Tesla Autonomy. They have products in this space, namely the real-time operating system and a lot of the architecture stack on top of that. So he has a vested interest in making FSD look as bad as possible. So I think people should realize where he's coming from. This is something that has been going on for years. A long time ago, there was some amount of work that Green Hills did for Tesla, and at some point that stopped. And I think that it might be something that he'd be willing to talk about. He used to be a huge, huge fan of Tesla. And then something changed. And about that time that it changed, his company started developing products for autonomous cars. So I think it's important to make sure people understand that.
Very good.
Yeah, like he's at CES talking about autonomous driving and all the autonomous driving solutions built on top of his platform, which suck, you know? And he says our software and technologies in millions of cars. So, I mean, this is kind of the problem. He didn't create anything like this. There are no active safety standard, feature standard in cars in part because I think they dropped the ball. And essentially his whole campaign, which he spent millions of dollars on, right? You don't usually just spend $1 million for fun. You spend $1 million because you think you could lose even more millions if you didn't spend it. So just kind of pressing him about his company, why does he not disclose his company's involvement. He calls it the Dawn Project. I think it's all a little misleading. And then you go back to the dawn of Linux, when Linux started to become used in procurement and stuff like that in the defense industry, and it was a threat to his sort of real-time operating system integrity. And he launched a massive campaign against Linux, and of course that failed. Linux still became wildly successful, but he was flooding Linux just like he's flooding FSD, saying, "Oh, we don't know who's doing it. Russian and Chinese people are contributing to the code," and so on and so forth.
Okay, good. Is Omar still talking? No, okay. Reggie.
Yeah, Yami, are you going to be moderating this space like a presidential election type of moderation? How's that going to format going to go?
There's no formal plans. But I'll probably have the leave button. So these are not structured things. You kind of roll with the way it rolls. Just roll with it. Be flexible. Roll with it. Have fun. It's gonna be fun. That's what I'm looking forward to. Mario.
So my question for Dan O'Dowd is, does he realize what an inspiration he is to all the children out there in the United States of America right now? Someone could be as successful as he is with mediocre software and a landing page that looks like it's from 1999.
All right. Steven.
Does anyone know what manufacturers Green Hill Software is working with, or what cars? I didn't know Green Hill Software was in any of the vehicles on the road. So, Wes, do you know what vehicles they're in by chance?
Yeah. So they partner with just about every legacy ICE manufacturer in the world. And they have a list. I can pull it. Let's see if it's still there.
I could Google it. I just that was news to me today. So thank you.
Yep.
Green Hill Software is a company that specializes in embedded systems, which means very tiny computers. So think about like a Raspberry Pi. That's kind of what he does, right? He makes the little Raspberry Pi, but instead of running Linux, it runs his Integrity operating system. And they've got like an IDE and a compiler and certain stuff that they sell you to make these embedded systems. So a lot of automotive suppliers, not only the OEMs, but the tier ones and the tier twos and whoever, they're making, for example, some window controller or something, right? And they use Green Hill Software and write the software for that little thing. So this whole sort of fragmented supplier ecosystem that people are moving away from because of Tesla is essentially powered by these little components running Green Hill Software. Green Hill Software doesn't do the ADAS themselves, for example. They're not actually building an ADAS, but companies like Mobileye build their ADAS on top of Green Hill Software, and other companies like I forgot, they mentioned some of their clients in their CES video. So they're kind of low level. They're essentially like an operating system and a platform for embedded systems.
For folks' reference, just like looking it up, Green Hill Software was created in 1982. Something to keep in mind.
Lumi.
Yeah, I just wanted to add real quick. If you get a chance to speak today, which I won't be able to, can you say that it was nice of him to cross the Rubicon to have this conversation, and also refer to his products in the past tense, if possible, like they had perished or died tragically?
Well,
Come on,
I
guys.
think we should, there's going to be a lot of people listening. So it may make us feel good to just dunk on him and make fun of him, but the audience, will end up seeing it as kind of immature, and it'll actually make his point look stronger. So I think it's important to just address this.
No, it's petty, and
No,
I apologize
I
for my
agree with your
pettiness.
sentiment, but I just thought it was important to say, because I see people.
But if you're losing the argument, please stoop down to ad hominem
No,
attacks, please.
I kind of see people doing it a lot, but I just want to address sort of like the basic misconceptions. Like he says, for example, like FSD has this level of disengagements. If it was, driverless, it would kill this many people or something. And you just say, well, this is a supervised system. It's designed for you to watch so that we can perfect it and it can be unsupervised. Like basic things like that he glosses over, like the fact that it's supervised. Just point out why he's mistaken in a rational, matter-of-fact way. I want people to see that there's a million people who use this product every day safely and they love it. And it's changing their life. And I want him to hear the stories about crashes that were prevented and the benefits of this technology that he spent millions of dollars to try and stop. And I want to ask him, why haven't you brought this technology to market? Why did you let people die for years and years and years and not work on something like this?
Also,
Good.
I really like that, Omar, you pointed out the whole Linux thing. It was 10 years after he formed his company, Linux comes into existence. Clearly, it's been very positive for the world. So the question is, has he ever admitted that? Has he ever changed his stance? And if he won't change or budge on that, I think that kind of like takes away from the, oh, we're just pro Tesla. No, we're just pro fact.
Okay, good. Phil in live chat says he's not only here on green days, he's also here on red days, especially red days, to gain some comfort from all the fun. That's a great idea, Phil. Just for fun.
Hey guys, I've been a bit in and out, so sorry if you've already gone over this, but I was wondering if you had invited Miss Jillian to the space, because I think she's done like a decent amount of
Yeah,
stuff
she's been
there.
in here for a couple of times actually on the speaker board. Everybody is welcome to the space. Everybody is welcome. I don't block anybody. Everyone's welcome to the space. Everybody's welcome to request to speak, reply, and I generally accept most requests to speak, except for the trolls or if someone is disrespectful, etc. But Miss Bean has been on the speaker board and interacted with Meta,
Yeah.
Wes. We had some deep edge case discussions, and that was very fruitful. And I encourage people to, if you want to invite anybody with some sort of following or an account that you like on X, just reply to their tweets with a link to the space. I tweet in the morning, first thing in the morning, I tweet out the reminder tweet for people to set reminders. You can literally take that and reply to any of their tweets or send them a DM and say, join the space. I want to hear from you.
Sorry, I mean specifically for this Adrian Dan O'Dowd chat.
Well, that's not my space. And I don't know if she was specifically invited. I doubt it. Earl.
Oh, sorry, it got really weird on me. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good. I just wanted to share a quick story. I've been super impressed with version 12. I've been using it all the time. It's great. Over the weekend, I had my wife in the car and we were driving home. It was like through traffic through the city. We had to make a stop, the whole deal. And it was doing great. I was like giggling to myself, like, this is gonna pass the wife test. Like, she's really critical of FSD or any of the self-driving stuff. And probably too much so, to be honest. By the way, has never used it. I've had FSD in both of my cars. She's never even tried autopilot. But anyway, so I'm using this. It's doing awesome. And it took this one turn that it must have 20 times. It must have taken this perfectly. And it came up and for whatever reason decided it was just going to kind of listlessly drive towards the curb, like slowly. And so my wife's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I'm like, it's not me, it's the car. I had to like out myself because I just wanted to like tell her at the end, like, hey, by the way, but that, man, I swear it set me up. It was doing so well. But I'll get her next time. But yeah, it's performing really well up here. Very, very pleased with it. But maybe I need to get the newest update to pass the white test. But
Wait, what two Teslas do you have now?
What's that? Oh,
what two Teslas do you have now?
We used to have two. We had
Okay.
three, and she never tried it in either one. Not even autopilot. She won't even try it. I don't know. I'm not gonna bother her about it, but I can say that sometimes when we're on long trips, she makes me turn on autopilot. She'll be like, "Hey, are you driving?" And she'll like make me turn the car on autopilot because she thinks it drives better. But like FSD through town, like she's just not a fan of it. But I thought I had it. I thought I finally had it. Anyway, I'll shut up. Good to see everybody. Hey, Tesla's green today. Yay, awesome.
Thank you, Earl. Thanks for coming up.
Yep.
Welcome back in time. Yoda, Wes, we have a few more minutes. Because I do actually need a few minutes to, relax and stretch before this big debate. It's going to be war.
There's
Yeah.
no yoga before wars, Yaman. You can't be stretching and relaxing. What are you talking about?
There's no yoga on the battlefields. Okay. Put that on mug. Yoda?
Yeah, I just saw in the Dan O'Dowd post that you pin up that Dan is taunting Elon to say, "Will you join us too?" So maybe Omar can fire off a repost to Elon just in case he can join the conversation.
I don't think Elon needs to.
Elon's not fucking coming, okay? Elon's designing a fucking robo taxi. He doesn't have time for this bullshit. But if he came in, he'd probably mop the floor with Dan, I'm sure.
How about Ashok?
I mean, that would be terrible PR for him to be in here. So, no.
Wes?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not worth their time. This isn't something that I think is going to be terribly valuable, but I think it is also important to engage with Dan and whoever else he brings on to just counter his arguments with facts. I think that's most important. And I think, Yaman, I'm really looking forward to you being stretched and ready. So do it, man.
Thank you.
What kind of stretching are we talking about here? Arms, legs, vocal exercises?
I will leave that to your imagination. Let's see. Who, Donnie?
I think Yaman's going to be stretching his arms because he's going to have to use it to rally us and hurt us all over the place and keep us from running around.
We have other things to talk about. We're talking about my stretching habits. Do you want Michael? Go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to say, I think Dan is just gonna use the NHTSA report and cite the numbers there and be like, "Oh, look how many crashes it causes," and it's gonna be like he's gonna probably cite the number of 60 crashes between August 22 and August 23. And if you look at the FSD miles, and on FSD specifically, those 60 crashes, if you look at the FSD miles traveled graph that Tesla updates every quarter, they drove around 425 million miles during that time period, August 22 to August 23. So 425 million. Let's round it down. 420 million miles. 420 million miles and 60 crashes is like insanely low. And then he's going to argue that, oh, well, Tesla only reports the crashes where airbags deployed. And that's only 18% of crashes. So they don't capture all the crashes. Even if you do that, even if you assume that it's the same ratio as 18%, it's still like twice as safe, like 2 times as many miles per crash than the average human. So it's just crazy. And the only one fatality in 420 million miles, that's crazy.
All right.
So we should use these figures to, if
Meta,
he's
did
trying to.
you write those down,
yeah.
Meta?
I remember some of them. 60 out of 420 million. August to August.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is like you can always, during the space, mention at the people on the speaker board, give them all the facts they need. If they missed a fact, a misstatement of a fact that the other side did, you can just, give them a heads up. Hey, like here's another easy argument that you can make. And I don't know if people are going to be able to see all of that, but I'm sure it'll be helpful. I mean, you can't hurt. Wes?
Any chance there's going to be a YouTube live stream so we can do more easier chatting?
Yeah, I'll do YouTube live stream at the same
Sweet.
time. I cleared it with Adrian, if that's okay. And because it's not my space, but he said that's fine. So there will be a YouTube live stream as well during that space. Thanks. Who, Danny? You may unmute yourself and go ahead. 3. There we go.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I'm sorry. I'm just hop in a car. So, all right. Just quick question. I have 2 Teslas right now. A Cybertruck and a 2020 Model X. Because the full self driving is not ready on the Cybertruck yet. I was just thinking to just try to FSD on the Model X, but somehow my 2020 Model X is still on V11.4.9. I've seen a lot of people with the older model, even 2018 Model X.
Yeah.
Is on a V12.
It's not exactly. So you're asking when you're going to get V12. I got you. We get this question every single day. For people who have the same question, follow About Tesla. He's on the speaker board. About Tesla has all the answers. And we're trying to minimize the number of the same question that he gets every single day. But this is just the reality of people with large followings. So,
everyone will get V12 very soon.
Yeah. Tesla Yoda.
Who, Danny, in the meantime, you could do what I do. Run a Tesla museum based on FSD 11.4.9 and charge admission tickets.
Thank you, Yoda. Yeah, I get a chance to test V12.3.4 the other day. It was amazing. It was really good. Definitely a step change in comfort. It did, just like the earlier speaker said, it did make a mistake in a roundabout that it nailed for the last several releases. It's a challenging roundabout. Even humans mess up in this roundabout. Lots of curb rashes by human drivers. I've seen it happen time and time again. And FSD was struggling with it about a year ago. It would come and just kind of take a long time to think and make a decision. But last several releases had nailed it. This one messed up again, Meta. But what happened was the second time we tried it, it avoided this roundabout. It tried to avoid the roundabout. So I had to force it into a roundabout. What do you think about that, Meta?
Every time you pull down the navigational route, it gives you fresh data from the server. It's very possible that in the real-time collection of data, it's choosing to try either different routes for A/B testing purposes.
No, let me tell you, the alternative roundabout is like 1,000 times worse. I mean, there's no doubt that like it's not like, oh, I'll just take this one. Like no human would take that route. There's zero.
Right. But it's not reasoning between which one to take. It's reasoning between which one not to take. So if it doesn't have a lot of experience with the other one, it doesn't know not to take it yet.
Worse in the sense that it would take 10 times more longer time to get to destination.
No traffic changes at that time?
No traffic changes at that time.
Yeah, then it could just be
really interesting.
It could just be L4 readiness. Like I don't know for sure, obviously. I'm curious what Wes thinks, but my guess is it's either random noise, which is very possible, it's traffic or other things that maybe were not observed, or it's in preparation for L4 after you get a certain number of bad signals in a place. It might just say avoid it until we figure it out. Or
so
deprioritize it.
so I know a bit more about the route that I don't want to discuss because personal and everything, but the only one that makes sense among the ones you count is the last one.
Yeah, I suspect at some point they have to do that, right? Like Tesla will have a moment where they say this thing could save a lot of lives if we just spend a little bit of time geofencing small areas. Do we try to perfect all those areas that might take a while, or do we do the geofencing? And there might come a time where that trade-off starts to fall on the geofencing side.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting. Now, let me just caveat that before I go to Wes by saying I only tried it twice. So first time it failed, second time I tried to avoid, and I forced it into it. We didn't go back and try it again. I'll do it again later. Wes?
It seems to me like if they wanted to turn it on now for like an unsupervised version, they could, because they know where it works with like 5 nines of reliability. And there's probably areas like that. So in the sense of geofencing, I think it's important to say that FSD is going to follow a route that nav gives it, and that's where it would be unsupervised. And when it follows that route, it becomes unsupervised. If it has to go off the route, then it would become supervised again, and you'd have to take over. Or you would have to, you'd be nagged and whatnot, and you'd be driver awareness would be that would be something that it would transition into. I could see them doing that as kind of like the next version or the next wave, the next milestone.
Matthew, you may unmute yourself and go ahead.
Yeah. Thanks so much. Appreciate you guys having me on the space today. Hey, I work in healthcare here in Los Angeles. I'm surrounded by a bunch of surgeons and anesthesiologists who drive Teslas. I'm super excited about FSD. I ask these high income earners if they're turning on their FSD, and I'm getting hard no's across the board. These are non-tech people, but they all drive Teslas. Just wanted to see if any of you guys are also getting that kind of responses, or people who are outside of tech, and what's your responses to them? Thanks again.
Omar?
I haven't heard that too much. I've heard people, trying it for the most part, but I think for the most part, people are kind of going about their lives. They don't necessarily care about a new piece of software on their car unless they're following this stuff closely. So that's probably a pretty normal response. I think they mentioned on the earnings call that of all the downloads they sent out, about 50% of people ended up using it and trying it. So probably a lot of people, won't try it despite the free trial. But eventually, I think they'll catch on when they see enough people talking about it. Just like with all new tech, there's early adopters, there's the mass market, and then there's the late adopters. There's going to be people who just keep driving manually until the day you pry the steering wheel out of their hands.
Okay, no more requests to speak. No more requests to speak. We're just going to run through the questions we have on the board, and then we're going to head over to the other space. Mr. J.
Quick question. So now that it's no longer beta, it's supervised. I mean, does that technically mean that FSD is 10 times safer than the average US driver?
Omar?
Well, when it's supervised by a human, people seem to die 10 times less than when they're manual. So I would say it is 10 times safer when supervised by a human. That's an important caveat. If the human's there to correct its mistakes. Once it's ready to do 10 times better than a human, even without supervision, then it'll be ready for FSD unsupervised. And that's the next goal.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, the reason I was asking is that Elon on the Tesla blog, or Tesla on the Tesla blog, specifically laid out, I don't know, it was back in 2017, that when they drop the beta label and they adopt the supervised label, it is 10 times safer than a human driver. And so I just wanted to...
Yeah, that's not true. That's not true.
Okay, I got
I'm going to move you down. You have to produce the link that you just mentioned, some blog in 2017, 10 times safer when they drop. The supervised label just came about. There is no supervised label in 2017.
Well, he said in the master plan part 2, that we'll drop the beta label.
Right.
And he said we'll drop the beta label when it's 10 times safer. So I think the statistics do show that when it's supervised by a human, it's 10 times safer in terms of the number of crashes and fatalities. So I would say that based on that criteria laid out in Master Plan Part 2, it is justified.
So you're comfortable saying FSD today is 10 times safer?
When supervised by a human.
I got
So
you.
the human and computer together are 10 times safer than the human alone. The computer by itself would crash more than the human, but the human and computer together, you crash less.
Okay. The specific sentence is Master Plan Part 2, which is early 2016. Once we get to the point where autopilot is approximately 10 times safer than the US vehicle average, the beta label will be removed. It doesn't say anything about when supervised with humans, but I understand the point you're making.
Well, if you're trying to say, okay, was it justified to remove the beta label, then I think it's justified in the sense that supervised it meets that criteria of 10 times safer. And then, of course, unsupervised would be the next sort of goal.
Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts? Any suggestions? Who wants to give us a pep talk? Anyone want to give us a pep talk?
Well, does anybody
Omar,
remember?
Omar, would you like to give us a pep talk before this war as we paint our faces?
Well, I mean, I don't think it really matters. This guy's kind of a joke, so I'm not really
What do you
taking it.
mean? How is this a pep talk? You started, I don't think it really matters. Come on, Omar.
I think this guy's kind of a joke. You know, I call him Dan O'Clown. You know, he's really kind of an odd guy, but he represents something, which is that this technology is incredibly disruptive. It's changed a lot of our lives. It's made it a lot easier for us to get around. It's save a lot of lives. I think it's preventing crashes every day. But there are guys like Dan whose businesses are threatened by this technology, and they're spending millions of dollars to slow it down and to try and take it out of your car. That's what he wants to do. He wants to take it away from your car. And he's spending millions of dollars to do that. And he's failed, thankfully. But I want him to hear from all of you. Screw you for trying to take away a technology that is adding to my safety. You are essentially spending millions of dollars to try and kill me. And it's not just you going against Tesla. You're trying to harm all of us. You're trying to harm even people who don't know about this technology yet, who could benefit from it. So I truly think this is a despicable person. I think that there will be a special place for him in hell. When he gets there, they'll say, "Oh, you're Dan O'Dowd? You were trying to prevent that life-saving technology so your company could make more money. Oh, right this way. We have a special room for you. Yeah, you're gonna get butt fucked by a demon today. You know, we prepared this just for you." And I truly believe that because you know I think he's well intentioned, but this is really just a marketing campaign to promote his company. Nobody knew about him before, and he doesn't seem to care that lives are on the line. He's trying to make money, but he could really harm somebody. And I think it's important he hears from us that he should just stop. I mean, if he wants to be a critic, he wants to go out there and tweet, that's fine. But you should not be spending money to push misinformation about this technology, especially not while failing to disclose that you have a competing company in the field.
All right. That was really good. Couple more hands. Meta, then Mario, then we're done.
I'm gonna leave you with Elon's quote: "Don't kill what you hate, save what you love." Let's approach it with that mindset.
All right. Mario.
Omar, great save on the pep talk, man. You almost lost it in the beginning, but you recovered it well.
And I would recommend Rocky theme song and montage from 300 for preparation.
Sounds good. I'll put that right on. All right. Well, this was the prep for the main event, which is going to start in about 10 minutes. You can see it on Adrian's page. You can see it on Dan O'Donnell's page. Or if you follow any other people on speaker board, Omar, Meta, who are going to come to the speaker board, you'll see a banner at the top of your screens. You can join that as well. And I had this earlier, the link earlier here as well. It's going to be fun. I'm going to try to limit any yelling, talking over each other. But as Omar said earlier, there's going to be a lot of new people in this space that don't come to this space. And any kind of immature attacks will be seen as a weakening of your argument in the other space. So I'm going to limit all of that from both sides as much as I can. And I'm looking forward to a good discussion. I think it's going to be informative. It's going to be fun. And then after that, we're going to come back here into this space and debrief. Thank you very much, everybody. And I will talk to you in a few minutes.